Saludos a todos y bienvenidos to the PGP podcast. Hey, welcome to the PGP podcast. Thank you very much for being here and Happy New Year 2025. Just a couple of days ago, we were with a previous Adios 24, and now we're in 2025, starting off the year with an awesome show with an awesome educator. But we would like to thank you. Thank you very much to everybody that's listening to us right now or on the rebroadcast, on the replay, wherever it is. There are tons. Take it from a podcaster. I think I've got like 20 of them that I listen to, and I mix and match them all for my workout. Thank you for giving us some of your time. We're not chunks in regards to 20 minutes or 30 minutes because we truly believe that knowledge is kind of like a history lesson. You got to get into the details to make it jugoso, to make it juicy. And as educators, all of us need that connection with current practicing teachers, administrators, because we've had everybody, bus drivers, secretaries, clerks, APs. We've had everybody on the show because that's how we learn. Iron sharpens iron. So thank you very much. Just do us that little extra, and it doesn't take that much. Ándale, no seas flojo. It doesn't take that much. Like it and share it. And when you go to the YouTube on the rebroadcast, like it and share it. You just want money. I ain't got no money. I'm in education. I've been doing this since Unlock the Middle for like 3 years. I have not gotten one check for a penny. It's about passing on knowledge, because if we become better version of ourselves, our kids become better version. And I can tell you, listening to so many podcasts, there is a ton of greatness on this show, what they bring to the table, and that can only make you. You don't need a PO. You don't need to get travel arrangements. You don't need to use the same hotel room with someone you dislike from your PLC group. No, it's just you and your computer. So also, if you bring something to the table, reach out to us. Reach out to us on X, on IG, on LinkedIn. You can be part of the show. We have different scenarios, different topics, but the most important highlight, just like our awesome guest today, is you. You're the most important thing because you're the one in the trenches and you are the one that's bringing the knowledge. What do you think about that, Dr. Mari Moreno? Happy New Year.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for saying all of that, Josh, because it is so true. I mean, you know what? I've gotten so many compliments as far as people saying, oh my God, you're inviting bus drivers and cafeteria workers. And we're talking about the entire community. When you talk about a school, you're talking about a school system that has everyone involved, because it does require everyone. Everybody at that campus needs to be involved with a child's education. So I think that's the most important thing, is making sure that we are including everybody. So, you know what? I'm really fortunate because I learned so much from so many entities, so many people retired, whether they are brand new, and hearing the stories. Oh my goodness, hearing the stories of brand new educators, people going into the education system, and then folks that have been in the system for a while, and how different it's been, or how different it is, right? With AI now and all of these new demands and emergent bilinguals, multilingual learners, all of that all kind of embodies what the different kind of challenges that we have. So, you know what? I'm super excited to be here, and I'm excited to hear about our guest today, because I've heard so many good things about him. And so I can't wait to have this conversation.
Right. He's a stalwart in our profession. And I'm going to stop talking about that guy. I like him too much. I need to see his face first. But before we get into that, it's a chinchilagua moment. What is that? Well, all right, guys. In Mexican culture, I don't know. I still haven't heard it from anybody else, Mari. You get more of those interactions. But chinchilagua is a game played by Mexicans. And we line up against a wall, against a tree, and we yell, Chinchilagua y arriba, boy, and you run and you jump on top of your cousin. And you run and you jump on top of your aunt. And everyone, ha, 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 ha. It's fun. Everyone's having fun until someone lands wrong. It's all fun and games. It's all fun and games until you land wrong. Someone's crying. Someone's nose is bleeding. The tia comes out. ¿Quién le pegó a mi hijo? It just becomes drama. All right. Well, I'm not gonna be that much into like take out the mirror like Principal Cafella says. Hey, check out Principal Cafella's show a couple weeks ago. Um, Look, I noticed that a lot of the podcasts from the East Coast and the far West Coast, they like doing that one word for the year. What is your word for the year? And they post it all over social media. My word is this. My word is this. My word is this. Texans were a little bit behind with that kind of stuff. Um, but the only thing that I would present to you out there is we are islands to ourselves a lot in education, and we choose to be alone. And my line, at least twice per podcast, is you choose to be alone. You shouldn't be alone.
Mhm.
So the only thing is, and then we become silos. And when you become a silo at a D minus school, and you're blaming the kids, and the teachers are blaming the kids hate the teachers, and it creates a culture of negativity, and you can't find a solution, there is a solution. It's right in front of you. It's that screen. You can find it on YouTube. You could. This young lady right now just posted an Edu Week, a blog post, articles. There are tons of things out there that there's free material. But you know what the best material out there is? This connecting with the principal, if you're a principal, the assistant principal, if you're the assistant principal at the neighboring school. ¿Qué
Mhm.
te cuesta? ¿Qué te molesta? Build that relationship. You're sharing kids within the
Mhm.
whole district. If you're a magnet school and you're getting kids from all over, why aren't you reaching out to the other assistant principals? Why aren't you reaching out to the team leads? You're not alone. You're getting the kids from those schools. If you're a specialty school like a CTE campus and you get those kids half a day and the other child, and creating those bridges, not only academic bridges, but also SEL bridges with those educators, with those administrators. And then you start, no one understands us. We're in an alternative campus. Oh, we only deal with the bad kids. Oh, no one. What have you done to expand what your school is? Doesn't matter who. You could be on an alternative campus. That's fine. All of us that are in a regular traditional campus, should always be sending flowers to DAEP teachers and administrators. All of us should always be sending donuts to those schools, because you know what? They get rid of Josh because Josh was a knucklehead. He did something dumb, and he gets sent to Mari's school. And you know how Josh is. Josh told you everything about your mom's underwear, and you send him away. And what do you do during that time? Woo, out of sight, out of mind. Woo, that's Marty's problem. Woo, Pontius Pilate, give me bathe me in that water. Josh isn't here anymore. No, they're a fellow educator, and they need to be seen, valued, and heard. More so because they're dealing with kids that have holes in their hearts, that are broken. The system
Mhm.
has broken them. And we're doing nothing to connect not only with our peers on the side campuses, within our district, or with
Mhm.
specialty campuses. We're all together. And you know that there's a lot of migration going on from school to school. So I challenge you, educator. Yeah, come up with your word of the year. That's good. You know what? It's a national PLN thing. We all do that, and you post it and you put little emojis and beautiful things. Go ahead, do that. That's fine. But what matters is within our own bloodstream, our own district, our own learning community, whatever it is, reach out and connect with those educators and make it a point to do it consistently, because no one likes it when you do it one time,
That's
because then
true.
you're faking the funk. Ay, Mari, ¿cómo estás? Ay, te mandé a Joshua, Mari. Hey, Mari, how are you doing? Oh, you know what? I sent you Josh again. Third time in alternative. But you know what? Send him back to us in 60 days. What are you doing to make sure? Because it takes a lot. And you know what? There are true warriors in those alternative campuses. And the
Mhm.
special schools like mine that are all, they come in milking cows. You know that, Muddy. They
Oh
were
yeah.
milking cows for 2 years. The parents don't know how to sign their name. I've gone to houses and the parents are illiterate and they
Yeah.
put an X as their signature.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about in Spanish, I'm talking in Vietnamese also, in
Yes.
Arabic. It takes a lot to deal with those. So don't
Mhm.
just be Pontius Pilate and wash your hands. Be a true educator of love and reach out to all your learning community the best that you can. And you know what? I can tell you one thing: 10 texts per day. I could do that in a minute and a half. And people that know me, I do 10 texts per day. I copy and paste it. I don't do a 10 thing, but I send one individually to each person. And that takes me maybe 7 minutes. 7 minutes of one day. And people say, I really needed this today. Josh, thanks. I really needed this. Thank you for your words. You know what? It's up to you to make sure that our beautiful profession keeps on shining like the diamond that it is. What do you think?
You know, Josh, you put a really good point into people's minds, I guess, and it's because it's important to reach out. You're absolutely right. And I'm going to go a little bit further, Josh, and say, you know, and reaching out to the kids too. Kids need to know that you care about them. So it's not only just the educators in these alternative schools and these administrators, but also if you're going to send these kids out to a DAEP, then go and check on them and making sure they're okay and find out what's going on. And then make sure that there's a transition back to your school, because the last thing you need is for them to, you know, act the fool again, because then you're sending them back out. And then what did the child learn, right? The child's not learning anything. All he knows is well, they're going to send me back to DAEP, and, you know, because they don't care is what they're going to say. So, you know, it's all about changing mindsets, giving them a growth mindset so that they can understand that when we come, that I care about you. You may be doing bad choices and you may be hanging around with the wrong crowd, but you know, you're going to grow up one day, and what are you going to do? What life changes are you going to do so that you can then be a productive citizen? So, you know what, I it's a good time to reflect on that. Many of the schools are starting tomorrow, back in session again, and so it's a great time. And many kids, I promise you, many kids miss school, and so, you know, they're hungry to come back. They may be, you know, your little knuckleheads, but I promise you, they, even your knuckleheads, miss school. They may not tell you, but they do.
That's so true, and they do miss us. They say they don't, but they do. But just we'll stop with that chinchilao. Hey, welcome to Dot McKeever Jeever, the mama of the Fantastic Four, with Coach Hurt, with Shika Houston, with Tammy Taylor, Principal Cafele. He's on an airplane from New Jersey to Garland ISD. I wonder why he's going to Garland ISD. I wonder where he's going to be tomorrow. So, welcome.
Josh is going to be with you tomorrow.
Yes, he's going to be with the Jaguars. He's going to be a Jaguar.
Aww.
Welcome to Melissa Jones Chunu from Oklahoma. Thank you for being here. Appreciate all the support. And the Spotlight Show is episode 10. Episode 10. That is Darren Peppert, who was last year at this time at Memorial Pathway Academy providing PD for our awesome Jaguar team members. And it's all about getting that PD going on, making sure that we learn from each other. And so I talk about Darren Peppert and his show. He's been on for 2 times here at our podcast with the coaching show, with Kip Schubert. But we mention him because he is on the road to awesome. And who else is on the road to awesome? Let me tell you who's on the road to awesome. That's a publishing company for a young man that we know. That young man is Mr. Martin Silverman. Welcome to the show, señor. ¿Cómo estás?
Oh my gosh. Bien, gracias. Thank you for having me. Bienvenidos a todos. And I have to say, there's 2 things I have to say from your introduction there, your chatter in the beginning there. Number one is, I believe this is the first time I've heard the word jugoso used in an educational setting. So thank you for that, because it needed to happen. And so thank you for that. And also, I just had to chuckle about your one word, because if anybody knows me and if I know you, you can't say it in one word. There's, you know, why use one word when you can use, you know, 127 words? So I'm with you on that. I tried to do that a couple of times, and I was like, you know, this doesn't work for me. This is not going to happen. I can't stick to just one.
Porque hay muchas palabras jugosas. There's a lot of juicy words. We just can't get our hands tied with one. Hey, my man, thank you for being here.
Look at that. We've got it now 3 times in here. I think that cements it. Jugoso is now a appropriate educational.
There you go.
Jugoso.
And without further ado, we'll get the show started by handing it over to Dr. Mari Moreno in the RGV Rio Grande Valley.
Awesome. Yes, Josh, I am in the RGV right now. You can tell from my boring background. But you know what? Let's get started because I'm super, super excited to have our guest today. So, Mr. Silverman, let's go ahead and give the audience a brief background on the different roles you served while in education and which one was your favorite and why.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, to start off, though, I have to say that I have to model what I believe, which is before I'm an educator, I am a father, a husband, a grandfather. So I always want to start with that because our real lives are our real lives. So I do want to begin with that. But a very long time educator. I retired in June of 23 after 40 years in Texas public ed. And so I taught in Houston ISD, in San Antonio ISD. I was an administrator in San Antonio ISD, in Medina Valley ISD. And the last 25 years, I've worked in Judson ISD in Northeast San Antonio. So I just want to speak to my former school districts and all of who had a part in, me becoming who I was as an educator. But when you ask me my favorite role as an educator, so I have two favorite roles. One of them was, and by the way, of those 40 years, 33 of them were in administration. So it was pretty lopsided. But I will say that I was a bilingual pullout K-5 teacher in Houston ISD in the late 80s when bilingual education was still kind of finding its way. And the kids that I got to work with and the families who were just then learning how to access United States education was fascinating and enriching. And I worked in a real unusual situation in that I pulled kids out of their general ed. They were in all English classrooms, but at that time there were just enough kids to do a pullout. And I had kids. I had really what I would consider non-traditional bilingual kids. In that, the neighborhood in Houston that I worked in had been a fairly middle-class neighborhood that had turned it during bad times.
What school was it?
Right?
Can you say it?
And so I was at Elrod Elementary
in
at
the
that
West.
time in Southwest. Fondren and
Yes.
Gassner area, and all the apartments on Fondren had become Section 8 housing at that time. They had been just like normal apartments, but they had become Section 8. But we also had a bunch of middle class kids. So I had even for the bilingual class, I had like doctors' kids who lived in the neighborhood where the school was, but I also had newcomers who were, just in the country for the first time. I had kids who had never been in a formal school setting before. So I had kids from El Salvador who had just come around third grade age. And so they were put in an all English third grade classroom, but spoke no English and had never been in a school before, in any kind of school before. But I also had kids from Colombia who had been in private schools in Colombia, very well educated, very highly educated. And so it was real interesting because the people that were not their bilingual teacher didn't differentiate between them the way they differentiate. Number one, among themselves, class was still a divider, a sorter, just like it is now, in schools. Unfortunately, class divides, but to other people, they were kind of this monolithic others that didn't speak English. If that makes sense to you. So there was no understanding of like what the child's background had been to get them where they were in the class that they ended up in, whether they had been, highly educated private school kids or if they had never been in a school before. To people who didn't understand Spanish, they were just those Spanish-speaking kids. And so it was, I took it as a very profound opportunity to help people understand that the same things that kids were, who happened to have English as their native language was the same as these kids that I was working
And this
with.
was back in the 80s. So, I mean, fast
back in
forward now, I think
Yeah.
everybody in Iowa and Oklahoma and Montana, everybody's now experiencing what you experienced back in the 80s.
Right. Houston ISD, right, in the 80s. You're right. Yeah, if you can imagine, that school was a very large school, hundreds, 600 or more kids in an elementary, and there were not enough bilingual kids to form, like in a grade, to form a bilingual class. But now, the area that it's in now, that school, I went and visited several years ago, and that school is, bilingual
in every grade level. I used to work in the Gulfing community, really close to Fondren and Elbrod and all of those places. So I'm very familiar. You're right. And there's so many newcomers now in that community that it's just overwhelming. And now there's even schools and programs now to support newcomers in schools, in large schools. But thank you so much for sharing.
Right, and then there wasn't. So that was one. But I will say also, when I became a principal the first time, it was in 1993. I was 31 years old. I was coming out of Houston ISD and San Antonio ISD, where I had been a teacher and an AP for like a year and a half. But I knew everything, which was, most 31-year-olds know everything. And I also had the profound experience of having like that knocked out of me within the first semester of working there, learning that I in fact did not know everything, did not know nearly anything. But I did go in with the confidence of somebody who knew everything. And luckily also with the mindset of somebody who was willing to understand that I didn't know everything. So it all worked out.
Awesome. Josh.
All right. About your trajectory in our beautiful profession. Shout out to Central Hicks for his year principal. Marty, you met him at the, where did we go eat? Where did we go eat? What was that place?
In Austin?
With Marty.
In Round Rock at the barbecue place.
All you could eat barbecue. That's where we went. That's Central Hicks right there.
Yes.
All right, Martin, let's peel back the onion. La cebolla para atrás. Vamos a meternos más adentro. Let's go deep inside. What made you enter education? Because right now, we have this exodus. We have everyone taking out. Salt Lake, thank you, Central. We have this exodus of people taking out. And then we have people from private industry like Mari coming in. And they don't know if we all taught our dolls or our G.I. Joes when we were in kinder. What led you to be an educator, my man?
So I'm going to tell you that's a great question, because the family legend is, so I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I have 3 older sisters, right? So the family legend is that they played school when I was a baby. My sisters did, and my crib was the principal's office. And so I always say that they imprinted that on me, unbeknownst to me, that they imprinted that on me as a baby. But, moving away from that, I grew up we lived in the projects until I was 7. We always rented. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, the garden spot of America. And, we lived in the projects. We always rented. My parents never owned a house. And, my dad had not graduated high school. My mother had a secretarial high school kind of degree. She worked in offices once I started school. It was, I didn't come from formal education, but education was valued, and it was the way to. And people talk about how my parents pushed education, and really, I'm not going to say that my parents did. It just was kind of expected, but also I was lucky that I was hungry for it, and I loved it, and I loved school. I loved being in school. It wasn't always perfect, but I loved learning new things. I loved, I was curious. What is that line from Ted Lasso? Be curious, not judgmental. I always felt like I had this curiosity, and so school was a very positive thing. But when I went to undergraduate college in Oswego, New York, up in the far north right on Lake Ontario, snowy part of New York. When I went to college there, I didn't go as an education major, but in my junior year, I was a speech communications major ultimately, and when I was in my junior year, it was like, what people would ask me, so what are you going to do with that degree? And I didn't have anything but a vague answer to give about what I was going to do with my speech communications degree, but it like struck me, I'm going to become a teacher. I had it was not my career choice as a very young adult, but it was something that was definitely possible because it was, something that I saw positively. And so I changed my major to education and never regretted it 1 minute.
Awesome.
Dr. Moreno.
So, Martin, you talked a little bit about your time in school, but can you just tell the audience before we kind of get into the meat of today's topic, can you tell the audience how you were as a student, either in high school or in college, and how your first year as a classroom teacher was? It's important to kind of, for people to understand, you became a teacher for a reason. But it's also important to understand how you were. Sometimes you could be a great kid. Sometimes, like me, I lived in the principal's office. I mean, I think that's why I became a principal, because I was always there.
I attempted to be a teacher pleaser as a young child. That I will say that. But I talked way too. You can probably tell. It's. I'm not any different now, but I talked a lot. I was curious. I was interested in people and things and whatever. So I talked a lot. I did, like the trouble I got. I didn't get into trouble a lot, but the trouble I got into was talking. But I wanted the teachers to like me. And when I was in 5th grade, the teacher loved me, and she did something back. So I was in 5th grade in the 70s, the early 70s, and she used to do these what she called dialogue journals. We would write something to her in our journal and then give her the journal, and she would write something back to us and we would write back to her, and like that, back and forth. And it was a huge positive experience. Now, 6th grade, I was still in elementary. When I was in school, 6th grade was in the elementary, and my 6th grade teacher was not that. She was not loving. She didn't get me. She didn't appreciate me, whatever I will say. And she became my example of what I didn't want to be as a teacher. I really, once I decided I was going to become a teacher, she was not who I was going to be. But then 7th grade, oh my gosh, my Spanish teacher in 7th grade, which is why I became a bilingual teacher, Senora Radek, my fabulous, fantastic, loving, enthusiastic, loved life, loved language, loved kids, loved, every one of us, we felt it. And she made us love learning Spanish. And so that's why I started in 7th grade taking Spanish. I took it till junior year or sophomore year of college every year. She created the spark. But I do want to tell you this. I went to a school this may be interesting. In elementary school in New York City public schools, it was all ungraded. It was all like a skills checklist, right? I went to junior high, 7th, 8th, 9th. There were number grades then. But I went to a high school. I chose a magnet high school in Brooklyn called John Dewey High School, which was also ungraded. It was ungraded. You picked your own classes. You could take independent study. I graduated when I was 16 because I was able to take independent study classes.
Wow.
It was very much like a college campus, very free. And that experience of being able to self-determine was huge to me, which then leads me, Mari, to my first year teaching in Houston ISD, which was the exact opposite of that. They were very micromanaging. They were very by a book. They had a book called the Style Manual, HISD Style Manual. And in that style manual, it said like what every first graders, I was a first grade teacher my first year, what every first grader's journal should look like, what their notebook should look like. So they had to have the same exact book. They had to leave a first page blank as a fly sheet. Then they had to have a title page that was, specified. And then they could only write on the fronts. And then after they had written on the fronts, then they could write on the back. Well, I started teaching before class size limits and before duty-free lunches. My first 3 years, I had 31 first graders my first year, 34 my second year. And they were going to write on whatever hell page they wanted to write on. There was no stopping a 6-year-old from doing what a 6-year-old wanted to do. And so it was difficult for me to learn how to live within that micromanaged system. Yeah. That was a big, huge leap from what I had been
and
used
things have changed since then, right?
Yeah.
Well, awesome.
Le quiero mandar un saludo a la doctora E.T. Cubole. Estás en el 915. Greetings to Dr. E.T. I don't know. She's in the valley with you, right? You guys are going to do PD together?
She's in Odessa.
Odessa, Midland.
She's going to
Saludos,
Odessa.
doctora.
She's working tomorrow.
Efraín, a past guest. Bienvenido, Efraín. He's a podcaster. Follow his podcast. He's from Illinois. Welcome, Efraín, to the show. Thank you. Hey, Martin, we just want to talk about the idea of how to, because there's a lot of people, and I hear this a lot. There's a book in you. There's a book in you. There's a book in you. So tell the audience this, and we're not going to go into the meat and potatoes yet, all right?
Right.
Tell the people, show the book. Show the book. Enseña el libro. Show the book.
A ver, aquí está.
All right. That's the book right there. Let me ask you, time from being a family member, from being a professional, doing the things that you're doing now that you're retired, how did you find time and what created that spark? Because that's a lot. The time and the spark to actually put pen to paper. Yes, I still do pen to paper. I'm not doing AI. So Tell me right now, how did you find time? Profe, saludos. Bendiciones a tu esposa, hermano. I hope everything is good, Gerard. He was a guest last week on our show, and blessings to his wife who's going through some medical obstacles. So, mucho amor para ti, hermano. Martin, talk to us.
So, you know what? I just want to say that you said it maybe backwards, in my opinion. It's spark and then time. When you have a spark, you find the time. When you are, I look at you and you are, you like to be at the gym all the time. You like that. And so I don't know if you like that, but you do that because you have the spark. And so you make the time. So I do want to clarify that's how it goes first. But I want to tell you that, these teachers that I had, these people that I've been, have been like lights in my life, which is almost all the people I've worked with. Dr. E.T., I just appreciate that she's here because I'm a huge fan of hers. She was a spark when she was at Judson ISD and she spoke, and I just think she's phenomenal. The spark comes and the words have to come out, right? The words have to come out. So how it started was pen to paper notes that I had written and stuck in the back of notebooks. I used to carry before I retired, these notebooks that I would write all my notes, for the day in. And I was a pen and paper guy also. And I would write notes, and I would, in the back of those books, I would be like, when I write this book, this is something I want to talk about. This is something I want to do. And how it started, Josh and Mari, is that during the pandemic, especially, I became connected with the Teach Better team, which I know that you all are peripherally involved with. There's lots of people that from that are involved with that, with their mastermind. And they had a blog, and I thought, this is the time when I can, when I'm, quote, off work, that I can start putting some of these in real specific blogs. And I can, I didn't know you have to take things in chunks. So it wasn't like I was going to write a whole book in a sitting, but the blog post I could do, an article I could write, I could get that done. And then all of a sudden you see that there's a connection between all of these, and it's got to come out. And I have always wanted to write a book. And so if you look at Facebook, if we're followers of each other, you'll see I just posted something either this morning or yesterday about having written this book. And what I was saying is my second grade teacher, when we were living in the projects, told my parents, Marty is a good writer. And that, my parents said, he said Marty's a good writer. And 50 years later, 50 something years later, it's way more than 50 years, I got the book written. So the book, the idea of the book, it started in second grade with the teacher that said I was a good writer, because, and what I wrote in my post, it's true. You have to speak life into kids, speak life into them. They get enough negative input. And adults too. It's not just kids. Speak life, and then you get the spark. The words have to come out. They started coming out in blogs, and then the blogs became presentations, and then presentations became chapters, and chapters became a book.
Thank you for sharing, my brother. Appreciate it, Mari.
So I know you have a podcast. So before we talk about the book, I want people to understand about your podcast and why did you start it? And what takeaways did you get from interviewing so many people from your podcast? Because I'm a big podcast person as far as listening to people, and you're here. We're here now, right? So tell us a little bit about your podcast and what are some of your takeaways from everybody that you've interviewed?
Yes, I love that you asked about that. So the second question is my podcast, and I called it the second question because the second question of every teacher interview that I did was, who's the best teacher you ever had and why were they the best? And so my hook, I guess, my idea was I wanted to honor teachers by having people come and speak about themselves, of course, but also to end with who their best teacher they ever had and why they were the best. And so mine was dedicated. My first episode, I got to do my second question. It was Mrs. Radek, Senora Radek, my Spanish teacher. And in Hallmark movie form, the episode was recorded and it released, unfortunately, 2 weeks after she passed away. I wanted her to hear it. She never got to hear it, but it's not all sad like that, because she and I had kept in touch. Believe it or not, I'm 62 years old, and this was a few years ago. But she and I had found each other on Facebook, and were able to keep. So she knew how I felt about her. I gave her every bouquet of flowers, as you like to say. While she was still alive. I didn't wait, to honor her until after she passed. But so then I started interviewing. My first guest was my son, who was becoming a teacher, who is now a teacher. And then it moved out from there to all kinds of people that I had, that I just wanted to talk to and talk about, And it was not necessarily about educational philosophy all the time. It was really pretty much about who they were as people, and then who their favorite teacher was at the end. And we, Josh, you listened to all the episodes. There was laughter, there was tears, there was, all kinds of everything, because human beings, everybody has a story. Seen, valued, and heard are my three words that I hear you guys say, and that I believe as well, that, people wanted that they want to be able to tell their stories. And so I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite guests, of course, Josh Tovar, of course, but he would have to be number one. But I had watched a YouTube video of a man in England, in northwest England, near Liverpool, who had brought he was a headmaster at a school, and he had brought his school choir on Britain's Got Talent, and there's a video of them performing, and it's like wild and exciting and fun and silly and all those kinds of things. And if you watch that video and you don't cry at the end of it, just like from the sheer joy of these kids, there's something wrong with you, I would say. And they didn't end up winning Britain's Got Talent. They got a golden buzzer. They went, pretty far into it. They didn't end up winning. But I connected with the guy on, at that time I was on Twitter, pretty actively, and I connected with him and asked him if he wanted to be a guest kind of out of the blue, and he immediately said yes. And we had this great conversation. And what I learned was, even across the ocean, we all have the same problems, the same expectations, the same, needs, the same wants, all those kinds of things. And so it was such a good, that was one of my favorite episodes, for sure. And so the reason I did it was because I wanted a voice, and I wanted to give people a voice. That's the short version. And during the pandemic, again, there was time to start projects like that. And that's
awesome. Real quickly, you said your son is a teacher?
What? My son is a teacher. My youngest, I have 3 kids. My youngest he's a special education. He was a SPED aide who became a SPED teacher, and is now an adaptive physical education teacher in Judson.
Awesome. Yep. Well, you give him my love, because I know special education teachers do so much work with our most at-risk students. So, my heart, my love, goes out to your son.
Absolutely.
All right, cliffhanger time. It's time to take one of those commercial breaks to remind everybody that there's this awesome book out there by Barbara Bray, Grow Your Why. 23 stories of educators that will inspire you, that will touch your corazon. Beautiful things of overcoming obstacles. And there's this cat. They save the best for last right here. Federico Tovar. So I suggest that you take this time to start off 2025 by purchasing Barbara Bray's book. And I'd like to give a shout out to our Andrea Samadi. We're going to get her on the show. She's brain research, and our faculty this book study, and we're going to present it tomorrow. It is awesome, guys. I'm a slow reader. Some of you might say, you're just slow, Josh. Yeah, that too. But this is such an easy read. It is a very easy read, guys. And I know one of the luxuries that we don't have in education is time, and we can't be reading font too. But this is awesome because it's a lot of self-written notes on reflecting and using the brain. And it's all, look, a lot of it is you writing down your thoughts. Yes, it talks about the amygdala. Yes, the frontal lobe. It talks about all that, but it gives you strategies on belief, on expectations, on focusing on yourself. This is such a great thing if you're working with at-risk kids. And you know what? After the pandemic, with 2 years gaps, all our kids are at risk. It doesn't matter if he's going to MIT. His issue is a little bit different than the kid that just got here from Afghanistan. But all our kids, those 2 years, that gap really created a ripple effect in time. So I really suggest that you reach out to Andrea Samadi. She has a podcast also. Her book is awesome, thebomb.com. So let's get back into RTA. Marty Silverman, what is RTA? The Road to Awesome by Darren Pepper Publishing Company. And we'd like for you to please tell us the overall, what's your message in this book? What are you looking for the educators to learn from? Your words, your thought, your experiences.
And that is exactly what it is. My words, my thoughts, my experiences. Because this book that I wrote is not an academic read at all. It's almost like a guide. It's a guide for you to, if you're a school administrator and you want one of the biggest problems that we've had in the last several years is teacher retention. And so but I did not have that problem. I'm going to tell you that I didn't have a teacher retention problem. And I looked at why do my teachers stay and other people have constant turnover? Well, so what I determined is that the culture at my school was one that it not only enabled people to stay, it encouraged people to stay, it encouraged kids to stay, it encouraged families to want to be connected to us. And so what I did was I wrote a book with 6 chapters worth of, this is something you can actually do. You can do it tomorrow. You can do it in a week. You can do it in a month. You can do it in a year. You can think about doing it and then do it. But it's a lot of action steps of this is what I did. This is what you could try. And then, and if you do these things, then you're on your way to building a culture that makes teachers want to stay.
Thank you, brother. Dr. Moreno?
So thank you, Martin. So I know in the book you talk a little bit about teacher autonomy. So can you explain to the audience, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so we hire people to do jobs. We're hired to do jobs. And then, I was talking about how in Houston ISD, I felt micromanaged right from the beginning. We hire people to do a job, and then we tell them how to do their job, what to do in their job on a very daily basis. And, people don't want to stay in a place where they are micromanaged that way. If I hire well, if I do my job and hire the right person for a job, and then then my job is to get out of their way and let them do what they do and to provide support. But I will tell you this, most of us as administrators are a little bit more type A than that. Like, we're not okay with just letting go of things. We feel like we want to do everything and have our hand in everything. And I will tell you, that's probably the first lesson that I learned to preserve my own self and allow myself to have 33 years in administration was, I can't do everything. I don't touch every child. I don't, my job is not the kids. My job is the adults. My job is to help the adults do for the kids. My job is to support the adults so the adults can support the kids. My job is not directly to support. Now, does that mean I didn't? So of course I support. Of course you build relationships. You have, you love, you teach, you model. But if I'm going to do right by 600, 900, 1,000, 2,000 kids, depending on the size of a school, then what I have to do best is get the person who's supposed to do the thing to do the thing, right? And I have a great story that goes with that. I'll tell you in just a second. So when I talk about autonomy, it is, I want teachers to be able, the teachers that I hire, the custodians I hire, the cafeteria people that I hire, the paras that I hire, if they have an idea of how something should work, they're the ones who are doing the job every day. One of my sayings is, here, Josh, you can have this one for your future. It's, people who work on carpet make decisions for people who work on tile. And I'm very aware that as an administrator, I was working on carpet, making decisions for people who worked on tile. But the people who work on the tile are doing the work. They know what what works best. They know what is, sometimes right for kids that I want to think that I do know, but they actually know because they're the ones who are actually doing the work every day. So appropriate teacher autonomy is not, you're an expert in, whales of the South Atlantic, so you only have to teach whales of the South. It's not that. I'm not talking about that kind of autonomy. What I'm talking about is allowing decisions to be made at the place that the decision is going to be implemented as much as you possibly can, right? So, my story about that is I had a superintendent, my first principalship, who was a good old girl from East Texas. So here I was a Brooklyn, a Jewish kid from Brooklyn, working with this superintendent who was a good old girl, top black face from deep East Texas, and she had this kind of accent. And we had at that time Medina Valley was small, just 4 schools, and the principal of the intermediate school, our custodians at that time mowed our yards, and we didn't have like grounds people that from the district, so it was whoever your custodians were also did your grounds. And the guy was having a hard time getting his custodian to keep the grounds looking like they were supposed to. So he hopped on the mower and was mowing the yard, and she saw him. And so a lot of educators would say, he's modeling, that's such a good thing for him to do. But she told him, if I ever see you in her accent, if I ever see you, so hear it in her accent, if I ever see you on that mower again, I'm going to write you up, because I don't want my administrator mowing. I want my administrator to get the person who's supposed to mow, model for that, show him what you want done, help him do what he needs to, get done, and then get him to do it. And so I loved that, that became a philosophy of mine, is that I have greater influence getting the person, teaching them to fish rather than doing the job for them.
All right, thank you for sharing that. And that's been to me, and I tell that to, I agree. And that's why I appreciate you so much, because hearing your 60 plus shows, you know quickly when you connect with someone. When I met that lady down there, I knew I connected with her quick. When I heard you on your shows, I knew real quick, because you know what's true. It's so true. Birds of a feather do flock together. And to me, it's always been this has been the same thing. The best gift I could ever give you in the trenches is letting you alone, giving you the grace to use your talents. Because that committee, then I made the recommendation for you to come on board to be part of the family. So I got to trust that. The only time I'm going to interfere myself is when I see the product, which are the kids, and how they're affecting not only your classroom, but the other classrooms. Because you might be laissez-faire, creating pandemonium, and you think that's okay. But when they leave your classroom, the teacher next door is going to get a bunch of hornets. And that's not the way they run their classroom. So if I got to go in there, or if I go in there and you're doing word searches, sorry, that's not preparing them. So I am going to jump in.
Josh, my hair went up. Oh, I hate word searches.
It still happens. And so that's when you have those awkward conversations. And you know what? And everybody out there, and Martin and Mari could agree with me, and you could call me a liar. But that also happens at the administrative level, because there's an administrator in that campus and in that area that they're all D schools. We all have to create this thing, because we have to be equitable, that everyone, but you're a B campus, A campus, and you're doing growth. All your approaches, meets, and masters, they're all going up. Your CCMR is going up. But because those people over there are not good administrators or not controlling their campuses, we all have to do the same minutia. And I've been in 3 districts, because you're doing it for them. That's kind of like those GT kids. What do we do? What do we used to do to GT kids? GT means you give them more problems. No, it doesn't. That's not GT. That's not GT getting more work.
You know, Josh, I have to speak on that, because the probably the image that I had as an administrator among my peers was that I was kind of laissez-faire. But what they didn't understand was I was not that way at all. It worried me every minute of every day that things were going right. But what I had to teach myself was to not intervene in everything and do it for people. And so the irony was, we were an A campus. We were a campus that became an A, and we were an A, and people would say, like, oh my God, he's not, like whipping at them, and he's not like, on top of them all the time. But no, it wasn't that. It was like, you guys, this has to be done. This is our goal. These are, our mission. This is our vision. This is what has to get done. I'm trusting you to get it done. Like, I'm trusting you to get it done the way you see fit. And as long as you're getting it done, I'm not going to be on top of you. Like, I'm going to praise you. I'm going to support you. I'll get you whatever you need. But I'm not going to get in there and do it, or I'm not going to crack a whip on everybody because there's 2 or 3 people that are not pulling their weight. We can work with building those people, finding their strengths and building up their strengths, and hopefully mitigating some of their weaknesses. But if you're already strong, I don't need to hold a whip over. Right. I need to get out of your way and let you go.
And just remember out there, those people that sit in our chairs or assistant principal chairs, we have a vested interest in your success. Especially we hired you. And so it's very important that you remember that. So whatever you do, everyone gets coached. Tom Brady got coached winning Super Bowls. Tiger Woods had a coach. The Olympian, the swimmer, Phelps, he had a coach. Everyone has a coach. And you cannot be or have a sense of arrogance that you cannot be told, especially if you've been in the business 20, 25 years. That probably is that you're doing the same year 25 times. So it's one of those situations that we all require those coaches. Now, another idea that you mentioned, and it's a perfect segue, is this, Martin, is that one size doesn't fit all. This is perfect. This is part of the conversation. One size doesn't fit all. because those administrators over there, or because those two teachers always show up late to meetings. Todd Whitaker says it. Don't send an email to everybody because two people keep on being late.
Right.
And I'm sorry, this might be offensive and you get offended. I don't care. If you're a coward and you don't want to face those two teachers because they make you look silly showing up 10 minutes late with their Sonic drink and with their newspaper, that's not fair for everybody. That's what Todd Whitaker says, and I agree. You shouldn't be sending those ugly emails to everybody over two people that you fear. So one size doesn't fit all, but you need to address stuff. So talk to us. What do you mean by that?
Well, the very simplest is like, look at you and I, Josh, physically. And Mari, I don't mean to leave you out of this, right? I'm 6'4". How tall are you?
5'2". Maybe 5'2.5". Okay, let me just go with the half.
Okay. We'll go with that. We'll go with that. But you hear like, you see clothing that says one size fits all, right? Hats. I don't wear a lot of hats, and I used to have a ton of hair when I was young. I had like big fro. I had a big fro. I'll show you a picture someday. But it was, but I can't get a hat to fit this big head, and they say one size fits all. Even those caps that have the little holes, I go to the last one. And I'm still straining, right? But as educators, what we do is we do PD. So a lot of people are getting ready to do PD tomorrow and this week. And what's going to happen is well-meaning administrators are going to sit everybody in the room in the same space, give them the same message in the same way, and then wonder why the message doesn't land with everybody. They're going to teach. We're going to do beginning of year. We're going to plan beginning of year PD on a new initiative or an old initiative, academic, and we're going to treat 20-year veterans and 7-year veterans and brand new people the exact same. We're going to do 101 for everybody, and they'll do it in our administrative training at the beginning of the year. They're going to train us like we never heard this before, and like that. That's just an example of one size not fitting all. And teachers do that. And when our teachers do that, we admonish them. We say, you have to differentiate for kids. But as administrators, we almost never differentiate for our staff. We don't give different PD to different people. We give the same PD to everybody and say, everybody, however much of this lands with you, great or not great, whatever it is. And so what I try to say is, as administrators, the default is to go to the middle, and sometimes it's not even go to the middle; it's to go to the low, right? We say we're going to teach this so that it's blank for dummies. We're going to do ELL supports for dummies. We're going to do RTI for dummies. We're going to do ELA
strategies for dummies.
If we were gonna do one size fits all, and we did the GT version for everybody, I'm good with that. I would be better with that than doing the dummy version. If we have to do the same thing, let's do it at a high level. But really, what I would say is, let's differentiate for adults the same way we expect adults to differentiate for kids. And then I also want to say that the other default is, well, then if we can't do it for everybody, we're not going to do it for anybody. So an example I give in the book is we have people who, we just had the Christmas holiday season. And if you're in an elementary school, and I was always in elementary, so forgive this elementary example, but we do stuff like, let's have something every damn day, excuse my language, of December. We're going to have a sweater day and a sock day and a hat day and a elf day and a this day and that day and every other day. And then we get mad when people don't participate or don't want to participate. And we say they're not part of our family. They're not trying to be part of our team. They're not a team player. But I'm going to tell you this. And then what happens is we get discouraged and we say, well, we're not going to do that anymore. And what I say is do more things. Like, don't take stuff away, and understand that not everybody has the money, time, inclination, may not celebrate the holiday, may have a negative connotation to a holiday. They may not want to eat the food at the potluck, so they may not want to bring, what I'm saying? Like, all of those things that we want people to do, instead of taking it all away, let's try to find something that different things that almost anybody can participate in, and then let them participate in that. And if they participate in some and not in others, we're just fine with that. We're just fine. They're still part of our team and still part of our family. And I can give you like serious examples of that and funny examples of that. I'll give you a funny example of that, which is Secret Santa that a lot of people just did. That I hate with every fiber of my being. I'm very giving, I'm very loving, but I hate Secret Santa because I take it seriously. And like, if I get your name, Marty, I want to make sure that I give you stuff that you don't just look at and be like, like that. And so rather than, and there's so much going on. I have, 6 grandkids, ages 5 and under, another one on the way. Like, I've got a lot to worry about during holiday season. And so Secret Santa was not one of them, so I never participated. But when we did cookie exchange, I was all about that. I cook and I bake and I love that kind of stuff. So that I participated in it. And the people that, what our school culture was we're going to provide opportunities. You belong here. There's something for you. If you want to belong, if you love Secret Santa, do that. If you love cookie exchange, do that. If you love, wearing an ugly sweater, do that. And if you don't, whatever you don't do is also fine. Oh, you're still part
Martin,
of
you just made me laugh because as soon as you said Secret Santa, I was one of those jokesters with my faculty. So I would hate to be involved with the Secret Santa, but they would say, you have to play. You're the principal. You need to play. So just real quick, I drew the name, and the person that I drew was my assistant principal. And so, and I knew she wanted this really pretty watch. We had talked, I knew her very well, so I know what she wanted, but we had to give her little baby gifts along the way. You know how it goes. So I would give her different sizes of coal or rocks, throughout the whole week. It was hilarious. So she came to my office, she sat down and she was crying. She says, my Secret Santa hates me. I don't like this game. This game is awful. I don't know why. You need to find out who this is and punish them, or you need to reprimand them. It was just hilarious because it was me. So you're telling me this, and I'm just thinking about Secret Santa was awful. But anyways, I gave her the watch that she wanted, which is above the $25 limit or whatever that we had. She opens a box and she says, oh my God, it's the watch that I've always wanted. This is beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Who's in my Secret Santa? And when she saw it was me, she was, I can't believe I was crying in your office. I said, I didn't want to give you all of these other little small gifts because I was going to give you a really big, nice gift. So anyways, but I was just laughing because you're absolutely right. Some people really take that serious. And I was just a big jokester, and I just would have fun with it. And my teachers just had fun with it too. But thank you so much for sharing, because it reminisces my time being a principal, and I surely miss those days. But you know what, Martin, I know we're getting ready to close the show, but we cannot leave this show without talking about your history at Salinas. And I want to see your reaction to that. So now that you're gone for a little while now, what are your thoughts about being there, and what is Salinas?
So Salinas was the last school I was principal at, and it was a phenomenal. I've been really lucky in my career because I've moved not a lot. I was a stayer in places. I was, in the 25 years I was in Judson, I was 4 years at one campus, 13 years at another campus, and 8 at another campus. So I stayed, I was not one who wanted to move around. And every place that I went alone. I didn't bring people with me, I never could imagine that those places would be as good as the place that I left. And it turned out in every situation that I learned to love where I was placed. Right. And so, I consider myself really fortunate to have been able to learn to love new people. You think you're never going to love like you loved before, but then you do. And so when I went to Salinas, it was interesting because the school that I was at for 13 years had opened in 1969. I became principal there in 2006. and I was only the third ever principal at that school, right? They had longevity. Salinas, I got to in 2015. It had opened in 2007, and I was like the fifth or sixth principal in the first 8 years that it even existed. So they had huge turnover. And then I got there and stayed 8 years. It was a whole different experience. And Salinas was unusual in that it was a school on a street, not in a neighborhood, not really in a community. It was just a neighborhood school that had been built that didn't have much of an identity. It wasn't named for the location. It was named for a person who also had not really had necessarily a huge connection to that neighborhood. It was an honorary somebody, a border agent who had died in the line of duty, who had been a student of the district, but that school, was named in his honor. And so we had to go about developing an identity for the school. Right. And so I loved my speech communication background became important there. How do you make Salinas a place, a destination, a place that people, like I said, people wanted to go to, people's families wanted their kids to go there, people wanted their kids. And so a lot of that was communication, putting out positive messages, starting social media for the school and using it. Yeah, exactly. Branding it. We were the Rangers, so we didn't exactly have a mascot that, we didn't have like a cute lion or a little, eagle or something like that. We were the Rangers. And so we had to, we became #Rangerland. And, it was like, you belong in Rangerland. Everything was Rangerland. And we became I feel like after the years that I left there, like it was a destination. It was a place that people wanted to come, people wanted to stay, and that families chose over and over again. We had open enrollment essentially in our district, and even from out of the district, and hundreds of families, hundreds of kids came in that chose to go to Salinas, and so I was super proud of it. And so for those of you who know the movie, the Selena movie. There's a line in the Selena movie where, when the bumper comes off of the truck, and they say, they see it's Selena's bus, and the guy says anything for Salinas. And so we had shirts. I have a shirt. As a matter of fact, I think my shirt, and no, it's not in the promo picture, but my promo shirt is me wearing my anything for Salinas T-shirt, because we kind of took that as a, we will do anything for Salinas and for our families and whatever it takes, right? Academically, socially, physically, but not in a incapacitating way. Not like we're going to do everything for you. We are going to provide a place for you that's safe, that's fun, that's engaging, that is, looks good, that you're going to learn in, that there's something for you here. If you're academic, artistic, physical, if you're community oriented, all those kinds of things. This is a place that you belong.
That's awesome. So it's nice to be able to do all of that, right? When you're branding a school and starting a school from scratch, or repurposing it. Sometimes you have schools that they close it down and they reopen it or something. So that is so cool. I congratulations, and I'm so happy that you had the opportunity to do that, and it was so successful.
Yes. It was people that learned that if they didn't know they loved it already, they learned to love it. And so, what's really gratifying about it now is our school district has this unofficial Facebook page where parents and staff and whatever can go on, and they usually just bitch and moan about whatever. But anytime somebody mentions Salinas, a family mentions, I'm thinking about, we're moving to an area, where should we move? When I see all the people that say, oh, go to Salinas, Salinas is great. The people, my kids went to Salinas and they were treated so well. My kids learned so much at Salinas. It was, I love still to this day reading that, because I know it's those people that you kind of banded together to make sure that people knew that was the place to be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So before we get into the lightning round, the Échale Ganas questions, Is there anything else you'd like to say about your beautiful, awesome book for the audience? Is there anything else that you'd like to mention that you say, hey, there's a hidden diamond in here? What would you like to tell the audience?
Well, I'm going to tell you that every page is more of a diamond than the next one, right? It's all compacted into this. But if you can hear the stories that I'm telling you guys, and if you can connect with that, you'll love this book, because what this book will kind of lay out for you is, if you want your school to be that place, the place that people want to be, that staff want to be, that families want to be, that students want to be, there are ways to do it. And this book will help you figure out some of those ways. So buy it for yourself, buy it for your friends, buy it for if you lead administrators, if you coach administrators, buy it for them, and give them the opportunity to hear about not vague stories that are, just like Hallmark movie kind of stories, about how I brought this kid up from, like the gutter to become president of whatever. It's not that. It's how do you go to work and learn to love it yourself, and have the people that work with you love it as well, so that they want to stay. And we know that people who want to be there, attendance gets better, student behavior gets better, staff behavior is better when people want to be in the place that they work. So this will help.
What a great promo for that awesome book. And you know what? I really recommend that you tie this in by going back to whatever platform you use and listen to his second question, his podcast, because that you could tell the spirituality of individual when you communicate with them. And I never met this guy because all I heard was a podcast. Then I saw him like physically, and I like me calmó. The 10,000 voices in my brain are always screaming. So, he brings something to the table for all educators, not only the wisdom, but most importantly, that we all need to have is that caring heart for educators and our children, especially the beautiful love that you brought to the kids of Salinas. But here we go. In closing, we have the Échale Ganas questions. Ganas. Hey, somebody in New York just saw that, and they are not Hispanic. They have no idea what that is. It's rare to find a Jewish Hispanic from the Bronx or wherever that guy is. He always says that. You know what? What if you're in Nebraska and I say ganas? What is that? How do you eat that? Ganas is a spiritual word. And I will always say this for as many podcasts that we do. It's a spiritual word that connects all El Salvadoreños, Hondureños, Nicaragüenses, Mexicanos, Panameños. It connects us all. We say it in a different format, but it's still the same concept that goes from generation to generation. It doesn't matter who. We always see, especially in Texas, we're always hearing it. Échale ganas, mijo. Échale ganas. The parents tell us, échale ganas, maestro. They tell us all that because it's a compliment. It's a spiritual encouragement. So, Martin Silverman, we're starting the third quarter tomorrow, and I want you to inspire some people out there. I know you already did with your experiences and your conversations, but this is a lightning round. Martin, it's a lightning round. Don't make me go wah, 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 wah.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready. I can do fast.
Also. Okay? You're not writing War and Peace, or you're not reading Moby Dick, all right? It's quick, all right?
Right. I told you this is why I can't do one word.
Yeah, just
let's go.
Do fragment sentences. Here we go. Give advice to a new teacher.
Control what you can control, and don't worry about what you
read. A note, an email, a text from a teacher or student that inspired you.
Okay, that's going to take some words, but I got one. I got to visit Salinas in December for the first time. I've only been back twice. And one of my teachers there, I have her Facebook post right here. Just want to show you that I'm reading. So she was also a student. She was a student at Hopkins, the school that I was at for 13 years. She was a student there. She grew up, and I got to hire her as a teacher at Salinas. And she wrote when I visited, look who came to visit me. Okay, maybe he saw some other people too. The way my whole mood changed was seriously insane. We miss you more than anything. I miss you so much. It's not the same without you. And in case you didn't know, he was my elementary principal as a child and as an adult. Marty Silverman, come back whenever you want. And so I've been lucky that people have, been really nice about sending me notes, but this just happened recently. And then the comments on it are from other teachers, a parent, and several former students that were students with Melissa that remembered, they gave some remembrances, and I loved it.
Eso, así, esas son ganas, así me gusta. Send some flowers to a current educator that inspires you.
So, I thought about this, and I'm going to say that I'm going to send them to Michelle Allen, who is the principal that took over for me at Salinas. She was my AP, and she is completely different from me, different style, different mannerisms, different focus. And yet, what I told her when I left was, this is, anything that I did, this is now yours, to do. And so you do it the way that you need to do it. And I will never interfere, and I haven't.
Love it.
And she deserves
Name one person people should follow on social media.
They should definitely follow Josh Tovar, but I can't just say one. Todd Bloomer, Darren Peppard. I know Todd's going to be your guest next week. Dave Schmitto, Josh Stamper. There's so many great people. And probably now, I need to follow Mari. I love following Dr. E.T. There's so many people.
Name one song, una canción nomás, una, that embodies your spirit as a person.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, it doesn't embody my spirit as a person, but as a grandfather, I happen to put the song Stone in Love with You from the Stylistics 1972 on the radio, on that for my granddaughters, and two of my granddaughters who now adore that song and request it every time they come. So Stone in Love with You by the Stylistics 1972.
What's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is, take care of yourself, for I will take care of myself for you if you take care of yourself for me.
What is your favorite cheat food or sweet?
Well, recently I've lost 50 plus pounds since I retired, but I have my scale ran out of battery, thank God, right before, like around mid-December, and I haven't put new batteries in yet because I have been baking, and so cookies I baked cake today, but my grandson's birthday, but cookies have been the thing.
What is your favorite TV show or your favorite book?
My favorite TV show book, I'm going to go back to the baking, the British Bake Off, the Great British Bake Off. I've been watching that on repeat.
How can people get a hold of you, my man, and suck that knowledge out of you so they become better educators? How can they reach out to you?
They should connect with me on LinkedIn if we're not already connected, on Facebook, on my name, Martin Silverman, on both of those. Instagram, the 5 Silvermans. I don't really use X actively anymore. I have it, but I haven't gotten rid of it, but I don't really use it anymore. But I'm on Threads, the 5 Silvermans, or I have MrSilverman.com is my website. Welcome to, and as a retired guy, my wife would love for me to have more people to, take away from time that she has to listen to my nonsense.
Got it. Martin, thank you for being here. Te doy las gracias, mi amigo, por siempre estar al tanto de mis requisitos, de mis llamadas. Thank you for always being there for me when I need you through my calls and everything. So I really appreciate you. Please reach out to this guy. Get that book. We throw away $13, $14 on a burger at Whataburger, and then you supersize it, you're throwing $17 away. That book is forever, not that meal. All it does is expand your waist. So make sure you and get that. And finally, next week, it's not over. Hey, Martin, Todd had an oopsie with his calendar. Oopsie. Oh. So next week, we'll have Superintendent Glenn Robbins from New Jersey joining us. He'll be here talking about his book. And remember, I talked about it. Won't back down. He'll be here next week. And after that, we're going to have our Teacher Roundtable number 3 with educators from all over the Canada and North America. Be here. Be part of the conversation. Thank you, Doc McKeever Cheever, Gerard. Thank you, Melissa Jones Jr. Thank you for everybody. Remember, it doesn't take you that long to like and share this. This is free PD at your fingertips. No excuses. Like it and share it. Share it with other people. But most importantly, que Dios me los bendiga. Que tengan un año increíble. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Have a great 2025. We value you, we appreciate you, because you're in charge of the best commodity of this planet, our children. So remember, you are not alone. You choose to be alone, but you're not. Reach out. You've got tons of ways to get a hold of people. We love you. We care about you. But please make sure you like it and share it with other people. And if you want to be part of this show, reach out to us. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Happy 2025.